What's up, my movers and shakers? I'm Dave, this is MS Paints, and this is Warhammer Underworlds. Warhammer Underworlds released its first season in 2017, and since then it's gone on to be one of Games Workshop's most successful introductory / gateway games, with 3 additional seasons released, countless warbands and factions to play as, along with a new-ish all-purpose starter set. If you haven't heard of a gateway game, then well, you're in luck, because I've started a new series because I'm sick of painting lizards, and it's going to be called Gateway Games. Genius. Gateway games for a while is something that I've wanted to tackle because in my Discord group and the Facebook group I see people struggling not just with the painting aspect of the hobby, but when they have to transport large amounts of minis, set up entire armies, and then they get to the rules and then the rules are too confusing, they're not enjoying it, and ultimately the hobby is not just about the painting aspect, which is kind of a really fucking obvious statement now that I say it. Obviously it is their games. And with them having battled through the painting process, because many of us do have difficulties with that, and then suddenly realizing you don't enjoy the game, well, that's a pretty shit place to be in. So why Warhammer Underworlds, and why should you consider giving this game a go? The miniatures are fucking awesome. That's kind of the only reason I need. Let's dive in and find out. First off, let's take a look at the box. Inside the box, you'll find a rulebook, which is mercifully wafer thin. A set of Underworlds boards, double-sided, tasty, 2 decks of cards, some token boards, and of course 2 Underworlds warbands to play with. And this is where Underworlds gets really interesting. It's essentially a card game, and your miniatures could be replaced with, well, absolutely anything. Here I am playing a blisteringly tense game with Shadespire with a 35mm Pentax lens, a Mackey's coffee cup, a Starlink weapons pack upgrade, and a fucking hammer. And while I may have made a joke about replacing the miniatures with a Mackey's coffee cup a second ago, well, they're really fucking good miniatures actually. Objectively speaking, Games Workshop is absolutely putting out the best miniatures that they've ever produced. And debatably, they're also putting out the best miniatures, full stop. Objectively speaking. Objectively. These miniatures are push fit, which means minimal cutting, minimal cleanup, no gluing, and no real faffing about. I must have put these guys together in about half an hour, and for a guy like myself with MS and limited fine motor skills, this is yes. All of the yes. And if you're not into the painting aspect of the hobby, they happen to be color-coded, at least in terms of their faction. But if you are into the painting aspect of the hobby, or want to get into it, the 2 factions here in this box are purposefully designed to be as easy to paint or as convoluted to paint as you like. I went a little bit further and painted mine up over the holiday season with my limited selection of paints at home, mostly just contrast paints and army paint or acrylics. Just throw on some base colours. A little bit of black here, a little bit of blue there, throw some washes on the bases, picking out the details, and dry brushing up some lighter tones to make the magic happen. With the Stormcast, I wanted to try something I've been meaning to do for a while. I used the MS Paints go-to, which is Vallejo Dark Aluminium, and that's going across all the metallic parts, of which that's about half the model. Then went in with a black recess ink for certain areas, and then slapped on some Agaros Dunes contrast paint. Then tapped a little bit of the flesh contrast in there, feathered across the surfaces to tint the gold a little more towards the red spectrum. And instant gold. For the cloaks and fabrics, just contrast paint again, and then steadily working my way up to a sea green turquoise. Nice. So I got everything out of the box, I put it all together, I did a little painteroo. So let's see what the actual game itself has to offer. You know what, it might actually be just easier to list all the things I like about the game and then do some counterpoints to balance it out. And I do absolutely have my 90th headache today. So yeah, so it's time to dust off that Indian Yappa Pie punishment strap and list the reasons and the not reasons why you should absolutely get into Warhammer Underworlds.
Give me Yappa Pie Indian punishment strap #1!
Card-based gameplay. This is sometimes a turn-off for seasoned wargamers because they seem to think that cards casualize a wargame. I'll always remember when I was a kid, my Uncle Lou got stabbed over a game of Uno, and I don't think there's anything casual about getting stabbed over a game of Uno, so And my Uncle Lou. The starter set comes with 2 pre-built decks geared towards the faction that they go with, and to a degree caters to their intended playstyle. But you are completely free to upgrade or completely swap out your deck with any of the factionless, unaligned cards from any expansion pack. So I can open up this Kagra's Ravagers pack and take out the non-specific cards, the unbound cards, and if I find a card that better suits my playstyle, I can just throw it into my deck. Or as I say, I can just remove everything entirely and make a new deck with the factionless cards. There's a couple of dozen warbands past and present to pick from, so the options are huge. The downside is that in tournament play you can't use the older warbands from seasons 1, 2 and probably soon to be 3. They get cycled out, kind of like Magic cards do a new season. It's completely not profit motivated at all. And that is totally fine, because there are some older cards that were broken at the time and now would probably be obscenely broken with new characters and combinations. And nobody likes a broken game. But for casual play, do whatever the fuck you want, because broken games for casual play can be funny as fuck. So card-based gameplay, top end.
Number 2.
Pictures on the dice. Now my brain works about as hard and fast as a sled made of jelly in the summer. Why the fuck did I write that? Why did I write that? That's fucking awful. And that means when I settle into a war game or a board game for the night, I don't want to be checking my Xerox sheets for stat lists or doing long division and averages on the 50 dice that I just threw across the room. Just give me pictures that tell me things. 2 hammers, good. 2 exclamation marks, very good. Exclamation mark beats hammer. Half moon with a guy next to me is a hit. It streamlines the combat, not to the point where it stupefies it, but to the point where I actually want to get involved and do it. Granted, there are a few combat mechanics that will take you a few games to get your head around. And even when you start adding items and abilities to your characters, you may have to check your cards to see how it affects dice, but everything in the game is written down and it's in front of you, and it's written so literally and well explained. No extra books, no lists, no parts, no deal. And even the symbols on the dice tell you everything you need to know about what's going on. Like this, 1 support icon. That means I get a hit, assuming I've got a supporting character in base contact with both my character and the character I'm attacking. And speaking of support, if you like what you see here and on the rest of the channel, then the best way to support MS Paints is via the Patreon. You can join for as little as £3 a month, and that £3 a month gets you access to the most wholesome hobby community on the internet. Honestly, it just kind of filters itself. I don't think dickheads like me, and I don't like dickheads, so we just stay out of each other's way, and everyone that's on the Patreon seems to be sound as fuck. Your support means we can make more videos like this, along with tutorials, terrain making, and more lavish, fun projects down the line. We got some silly bugger stuff planned. And it also helps to keep the lights on in this hobby studio. In fact, it actually pays for this hobby studio, so both. You tell them, Tony.
Absolutely, D-Dog. And if that ain't your kind of bag, don't worry about it. Just hit the like and the subscribe to stay notified, or I'm gonna find you and kill you.
Number 3.
Footprint. This game takes up next to no space. If you want to travel with a complete game, that's boards, dice, cards, tokens, and 2 warbands. It'll all fit in your Warhammer Underworlds branded overnight bag. Nice and easy, throw it in a bag, get on a plane, go somewhere else, play it with a friend. Although I do recommend just playing it with like a local friend. Or if you've got a really smart dog or like a pet pig, you could just play it with them. And once it's all set up, you can fit it on an office desk for a lunch break. It'll fit on a coffee table. And at a push, it'll even fit on a medium-sized arcade cabinet.
Number 4.
The warbands. Playing a game with 5 models aside definitely has its benefits. As you've seen, I can paint enough models to play a game in just a few hours. And collecting the various warbands means that every time you get one, there's a new skill in terms of painting to learn, and there's a new thing to look at. They're all so different to each other. Apart from when they went through that phase where they were just doing angry looking dudes in like fur loincloths. That was, every time a new one came out, I was just like, right. Just fucking release the lizard men, guys. Every model is absolutely unique though, and it stands on its own as kind of a display piece almost. If you wanted to try your hand at painting skin tones, for example, or even if you wanted to paint some Stormcast for the first time, but you don't want to buy a box of 20 identical ones, then you can just get a box with 3 in it, and there's your experimenting done. No batch painting, no grind, just a couple of short painting sessions.
Number 5.
Price. Well, the prices have slowly crept up since the first season, which probably has nothing to do with Games Workshop. That's kind of like supply, materials, demand, all that kind of shit that's going on in the world right now. It's still completely affordable. In fact, contrary to what I just said, this is cheaper than the first season of Shadespire, and it sits at a lofty 40 quid. And the warbands average around £20. As far as Games Workshop goes, this is probably one of the cheapest games to invest in, because realistically a full-scale Warhammer army is going to cost you several £100s, which I have no qualms with. However, a friend that you're trying to get into the hobby or share your hobby with will most probably have issue with that.
Number 6.
It's fun. Which seems like a redundant statement, but like there's a lot of games out there that say they're fun, but fuck me, they're not. They're really not. Now, if you walk into whatever the street number wang version of Warhammer Underworlds is with your starter deck, you are gonna get slapped and shit on pretty hard. But in terms of my experiences with Games Workshop games and getting the shit kicked out of me, this one has been the most approachable and welcoming community. The guys have kind of just said, okay, let's play another game, and then sat down and explained it to me, told me how to use my deck, told me what I can put in my deck, told me what the strengths of the warband are, mostly because they enjoyed the challenge of the game. Unlike Kill Team a few years ago. Christ alive, fuck Kill Team. So overall, Warhammer Underworlds, great game. Setup 10 minutes, playtime 45 minutes, miniatures 3 to 8, expandable decks, near infinite combinations of shit you can do. Were I to assign a redundant singular numeric value to encapsulate everything about this game, I would say 7. 7 out of 10. That's it for this video, but do tell me what you think in the comments about this dip into Gateway Games. Was it a review? Was it a top 5 thing? I don't fucking know. I've had migraines for 2 weeks. I had a dream last night my cat was black. That's the opposite of what he is. What am I doing? I'm leaving. Yes. Cheers. I'm out of here.
He's gonna puke.
It's not easy, is it?
Almost made myself actually sick.
Yes, mate. Gip it.